In today's video, we're going to do a tier list for all of the blessing stones in solo leveling Arise. We will also talk about some of the best combinations that you can use if you have some of these and you just have been wondering how to build Sung Jinu with some of these in conjunction with other pieces. So I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new for more content like this. Post down below some other videos you guys would like to see so I can get on those ASAP over the weekend. By the way, happy weekend. Hope you guys have an awesome weekend as well. If you guys are not already, make sure you do support the channel through the support link down below in the description. We are on our way to our goal of 400, and then when we hit that, we want to blow past that. Shout out to our top supporters, Demos, and these other NIDs. Make sure you set a profile name so I can name you in these videos. So I recently sent out 1,000 Soul Essence to all of our supporters. That should have popped up in your gift box over the course of the last week, depending on when you supported. So make sure you support so you can get that. Stay supporting as well, because I will be having more codes going forward. It just takes a little bit of time for Netmarble to give those out. So if you're wondering what's kind of going on with that, I will have more. All right, so starting things off, we're going to do a tier list like I said. Unfortunately, I had already recorded this video, but the good news is, and it didn't work, but the good news is I kind of have all my reasonings in mind already. So I guess it's like a second take. I got 40 minutes into the video and my computer just decided to turn off. So, all right. Hopefully this video isn't that long, by the way. So we are going to start off with advanced dagger techniques. So for the record with that, some people were confused. Do you have to be using a dagger weapon? No, you don't, by the way. That's a very basic thing, but you'd be surprised. All right. So starting things off with that, here's a look at it here. When attacking an enemy who has 70% or less of their HP, the damage you deal increases by 14%. This is essentially, the Executioner rune set, or artifact set, in the form of a blessing stone. By the way, I like saying the word rune a lot, so I'll say rune sometimes when I mean blessing stone for the record. Anyway, so this is basically what that is. And then at lower rarities, because I know people are going to have that legendary, right? 8.4 here. And then the rare version is obviously not anywhere near as good, and that's 5.6. I'd argue, though, that you could still use this in any rarity depending on the build. And ultimately what you have here is you have one of the best offensive blessing stones in the entire game, because just flat out yielding a damage increase for minimal requirement is a nice trade-off there. Yeah, they have to get below 70%, but when they get below 70%, which isn't hard to do, it becomes one of the more consistent offensive blessing stones. So for that, it's going to go all the way to S, in my opinion. I think that is one that if you have it, you can use it. You should be using it. Now, moving on from here, here's where things are going to get kind of fun. Do I want to go back and forth? So ultimately, when I did my initial run at this, the whole, damn near the whole first row all wound up in A and S. And then the bottom row was the opposite, kind of, not really. And so I'm going to go back and forth, front, back. And next up is going to be the wolf one. And so obviously I'm going to place some of these in some spots, but again, listen to my reasoning. So this one here, I don't think I got to cover that one in the initial video. So let's go back over to the game. And for this one, Wolf Assassin, the damage you deal to normal monsters increases by 16%. I can't tell you this is a bad blessing stone. For the record, I don't really think there's a single bad blessing stone. I just think that the usefulness of some of these varies. For example, would I rather have this or would I rather have advanced dagger techniques? While the number on this is higher, I'd argue that the condition is worse. However, I'd also argue that this is a better one flat out, and it's not close if you're taking on stages that sometimes don't really have boss monsters, or they're pretty much just hordes. So that's where your versatility in this game really comes up, because ideally the way they want you to be playing this game, you may or may not be doing this, is they want you to be shifting around your skills, your weapons, your blessing stones, your runes, all that crap, pretty much for any piece of content. So it's not like a one size fits all blessing, all the time type of thing is what they want. The reality is, though, is that you can kind of keep on most of the same stuff, like the same 5 or 6 blessing stones, and clear pretty much anything. So anyway, if you wanted to cycle this one on, no one would blame you. This is a good one, though, like I said, but it's completely irrelevant on stages that do have mainly bosses, things like that. I guess it just kind of depends what piece of content that you're taking on in particular. And so for this one, it's not at all a bad one. It just lacks some of the usefulness. By the way, I will have some of the same criticisms of Boss Slayer. However, I'm a little bit more kind to Boss Slayer because, I don't know, the bosses have a freaking crap ton of HP, right? So it is what it is. But again, not a bad blessing stone. Moving on here to Assassin's Proficiency, I believe is what that one's called. And that one increases your back attack damage. So anytime you're hitting them from the back. Pause. No, pause. Play it. My wife is looking at me like I'm crazy. All right. So this one, where's it at? I lost my whole train of thought. Assassin's Proficiency. Your back attack damage increases by 16%. So these, we've gone through 3 DPS-based Blessing Stones already, and they all have kind of different conditions. So this one is actually really good. I think I already placed it, but I think it's an A tier one. This one's really good in general, right? The tricky thing with this is that it's hard to maintain attacking from the back against the opponent, because while you have a move like Shadow Step that automatically teleports you back there, that's not going to be consistent. Well, it can be consistent depending on who you are, how you play, what other stuff you're running with your build. That does matter. Get good, by the way. It's not the craziest thing. Like, it's another situation where I'd rather have Dagger Technique personally, but the damage increase is nice. And then also a thing about this that's really good is that since it's used with the Shadow Step most of the time, they're going to be having that fat damage increase because of the defense debuff that you applied with the Shadow Step. So this is more valuable than you would think because of the fact that it's typically used in conjunction with that. But where it falls off for me and doesn't make it to S is because if you're not in a position where you're doing Shadow Step consistently, or you can't get behind the opponent for whatever reason, or even Shadow Step sometimes sends you to like the side of them, I don't think this is proccing in those situations, then unfortunately this is literally doing nothing. So that's kind of where it falls off for me. But if you are somebody that can maintain being behind the opponent, then that's a good one overall. Weakness Policy, or whatever this is called. I think it's called Weakness Policy or something like that's in a different game. Anyway, so this weakness-based one, really damn strong. I've had it for a really long time, and I pretty much never take it off. It kind of annoyed me, so I left a pinned comment on it, but it kind of annoyed me in my rune selection video, Blessing Stone rune selection video from the other day with the update, that I kind of didn't really bring that one up in like a meaningful way. So I left a pinned comment on it, and hopefully people saw that, but I mean, there's not much I can really do about that at that point. And so this is one that I think is extremely valuable. However, the thing with this is that if you play the game the way I kind of mentioned that they want you to play the game, where you're constantly shifting all of your builds around, especially if you're trying to match with type advantage, then this is more valuable to you. If you're somebody that sits on the same weapons all the time and same skills all the time, you're clearing content, but it's not as valuable to you. Make sense? Like if you're taking on a fight that's weak to light, but you are not changing your plum moon shadow combination off, you know, you're using other runes as well that aren't light element, then like this does nothing for you unless you're versus a boss that's weak to dark, right? So this doesn't have value in those cases. However, if you are somebody that is changing those things off, then obviously this is 10 times more valuable to you. So in that case, since it is something that I think is really valuable, despite the fact that some players may not find a use for it most of the time if they're not shifting around their builds at all, despite that fact, I still think it's really, really strong and goes in S tier because the damage increase is massive. It's 20% at Legendary and then 12% at Heroic, I believe. And again, I just think that that's really, really valuable. Weakness detection, excuse me. So yeah, when they're hit with a weakness attack or attack they're weak against, then it just does more damage. All right, so moving on from there. Let's go back and... Oh, no, I accidentally hit... No, I don't want to open Star Rail. Okay, cool. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that thumbs up. The goal for today is 600. Share the video with your friends as well. And if you've made it about 8 minutes in, I thank you. Make sure you watch as long as you can for all of your favorite creators, because every single minute you guys watch does help our channels tremendously. All right, so let's move on to Bloodlust. Where did I think I had Bloodlust as a B tier one before. So the thing with Bloodlust is that it's another one that has bonuses and things that aren't as meaningful. First and foremost, in certain builds, in certain situations, that second half is largely irrelevant because it doesn't stack with the Shadow Step. And that's something that you run up against if you use other hunters that reduce defense like Becky and Ho. It doesn't stack with the Shadow Step. However, because you can't always have a Shadow Step up, it still winds up being more consistent than a Shadow Step. And then it's 10 times more consistent if you're versus a stage that have multiple enemies, more than one enemy, because typically a Shadow Step isn't going to hit multiple enemies. So with that being the case, that defense decrease is extremely strong. That's the legendary version, where obviously most people aren't going to have that. But if you look at some of the lower rarity ones, It's still pretty good too, 7% for 6 seconds. It's not the longest. It's just long enough for you to be able to, hit them with something hard, right? If you weren't able to get that shadow step. Sometimes also, for the record, you may just flat out miss the dodge, right? Like, again, get good, right? But it is what it is. Maybe you miss the dodge. Maybe you don't get the shadow step at the right time. There are situations where Bloodlust second half is really good. The first half is interesting too, because when you're hit, it decreases the attacker's attack. So what happens is this winds up being one of the only Blessing Stones in the game that has, I don't know if it is flat out the only, but it's definitely one of the only ones that has offense and defensive utility. Reducing their attack is good. However, it is limited in certain builds because, just for the record, the best Blessing Stone, in my opinion, is probably Chains of Blood because the yield is so high. And that doesn't work amazingly with Chains of Blood simply because Chains of Blood wants you to get hit. Chains of Blood, ideally, wants you to damn near get one shot. You want to lose 99% of your HP in one hit. Seriously, I'm not kidding. So when you reduce their attack or you reduce the amount of damage you're taking, then the combination gets worse, right? So that being said, in certain situations, you don't really want that first half. But I will give this one credit because, like I said, it has two types of utility, which is not very common. And so what I will say is, due to the consistency of it, the way it works in conjunction with other stuff, aside from Chains of Blood. I mean, it's fine with Chains of Blood. It just kind of is counterintuitive, I guess. But the way it works in general, I will actually claim it as B, yeah, but I'll say it's more of like a B plus, A minus. I think it's better than the Wolf one, just personally. Do I think it's... I think it may... Okay. I think I'll place it in A. But it's like A minus. I don't know. So here's the thing. DPS is king in this game. However, I will say the defense decrease is what's elevating it here. I think that's what's elevating it. I'll be kind. I'll put it in A, but I really think it's probably A minus, B plus range. All right, I don't know where we left off, but we'll go with Boss Slayer next. And Boss Slayer is really damn strong. I'm going to put it in A tier. So Boss Slayer is one that's really, really, really strong against boss characters, as you would imagine. Makes you, 20%? Yeah, 20% extra damage. The trade-off here is that you lose your dash. And so what they're trying to do here is, because the cooldown of your dash increases, you will now all of a sudden be less likely to have your Shadow Step. And then this is a good one to follow Bloodlust with, because it works really well with Bloodlust because of the fact that you're less likely to have that because the cooldown going up. Now, this also combos really well if you care a lot about your movement, your dashes and stuff. It combos very well with speed and swiftness, which impacts. This one flat out gives you another dash and a chance to reduce your cooldown of dashes. Really, really strong. Speed here, again, decreases the cooldown of your dash, increases your movement speed. So it combos well with those because it offsets those. So that's one of the things that you can do as well. But the trade-off here is that they think that people will be deterred from using this if they can't dash as often. And so you can run one of those other two, swiftness, speed, or some other combinations in here. Or you can run Boss Slayer with some more offense-oriented ones, like weakness detection, like we talked about, double-edged sword, or bloodlust, or Chains of Blood, things like that. It just kind of depends on what the overall set that you're looking for is. But since most of the time you're versus heavy hitter bosses that need to get peeled down, I think that one is much better than the Wolf Assassin one, because the way I see the Wolf Assassin one is that I don't really struggle against hordes all too much. Sometimes you're versus bosses and they have multiple bosses or multiple hordes with a boss, things like that, where you can maybe use both of them together if you wanted to do that. But at that point, I'd probably just say use something else, like dagger proficiency or something, instead of one of these two. But yeah, that's the way I kind of see it. Let me know what you guys think. All right, so moving on from that, we will go to Tenacity, I believe is what this one is. I didn't get to cover Tenacity or the two speed ones at the end of the video last time, so that's good. Tenacity, I'm going to place it there for now. We're going to come back and see if I move it. So here's how that one looks. The damage you take is decreased by 50% when you have 30% or less of your maximum HP. Interesting stipulation. I'm not too keen on defense runes. Blessing Stones, excuse me. I'm not too keen on them. None of them. Candiara Blessing, the Steel Fang one, none of them. I'm not too keen on any of them. I will say 50% at Legendary anyway is a massive freaking number. I have this one in Heroic, and I've used... Oh, I don't, actually. I thought I did. Anyway, I've used it a decent bit. 30% of the damage you take off... I guess I've used the blue one before. Yeah, 20%. Okay, that's what it is. Anyway, 30% when you're low on HP. The thing is with that is that like it keeps you from dying. But here's the thing. At that point, I'd rather just use quest completion. I'm not even lying to you. I would genuinely just rather use quest completion. Because quest completion says, okay, you died, but here's immortal. So I would just rather use that, personally, as opposed to keeping me from dying when I'm already close to dying. It would be one thing if it just flat out reduced the damage you take, like the other one, which I think is better, the Casca one. Yeah, here it is. It would be one thing if it just flat out did that at all times, but it's trying to do this thing where it super buffs your defensive capabilities when you're low. And unless, the only time that this is super duper strong is unless there's a skill, a weapon, a blessing stone, a rune, anything that combos with you being low on HP. Okay? That's the only time it's super duper good. Like if this and then some of the other defense ones said, oh, when you're at a certain threshold, gain extra damage, then that would be amazing, right? I think there is some stuff in here that kind of works well with low HP, though, in general. It's kind of tricky, though, because that one combos well with, like, Conqueror of Adversity. Because every time your HP decreases by a huge number, you get these extra increases in stacks here, improving your offense and defensive capabilities. However, again, for the 5th time, at that point, I'd rather just use an offensive Blessing Stone because DPS is king in this game. You know what it is? You know why I'm not too high on the defense ones? Any of them. You know why I'm not so high on any of them? It's because of the timer. Here's the deal. If that stupid damn timer didn't exist, I think that all these defense ones would be easily like A or S. But because it exists, I think they're all bad. Not bad. I don't want to say bad. I just think they're all subpar, right? Because the timer sucks. The timer stops everything you want to do. So with that being the case, to me, I can't rate these too highly because of the stupid timer and the importance it puts on the overall amount of damage that you do. So I actually think it's... I'm going to place it there. Something has to go towards the top. Something has to go towards the bottom. Like, it just... people aren't going to like that with something I'm going to do. Something I'm going to do in here is going to piss somebody off. Obviously, you can't make everyone happy. But, like, something has to go at the top. Something has to go at the bottom. Do I think that's the worst one? I mean, I think it's the worst one we've reviewed so far. But I don't know that it's the worst one in the game. For the record, I think maybe this one is the worst one in the game. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Camouflage. That one is a fun one. I'm going to place it into C, I believe, is where I'm going to leave that one. We'll see if it goes up to B or not. It goes right there. Camouflage. When you're hit by a large amount of damage, you disappear temporarily. When you receive damage equal to 5% or more of your max HP, you camouflage for 3 seconds and recover 5% HP every 1 second. Combos really well with the Conqueror of Adversity that I was talking about a moment ago. Actually combos really, really well with Chains of Blood because you want that. I think if you run Conqueror of Adversity, Camouflage, Chains of Blood with probably Daily Quest, just to make sure you don't die. You could take Daily Quest off, but you could run something like that. Maybe even Double-Edged Sword instead of Daily Quests. That would be a really good combination. So to recap, Camouflage with Conqueror with Chains of Blood, and then Double-Edged Sword. I think you have a really, really high-yielding offensive set. And the utility there is that Camouflage will heal you, but also give you the few seconds where you're just kind of camouflaged. So there's that. It's just one of those things where it's utility-based. I don't really know that you need it. It is what it is, right? It's very similar to the defense runes. However, I give it a little bit more leeway because of the camouflage, having utility in and of itself. The healing is kind of whatever. Recover 5% HP every 1 second for 3 seconds. So you recover 15% of your life with Legendary. Again, most people aren't going to have that. Here, 3%, so 9%. So, yeah, I mean, it's cool. But the main thing with that is just the fact that you are literally camouflaged. However, I'm going to leave it where it is. I think, like I said, it has use. I think, for the record, all these have uses. It just depends on what the build is. Oh, my baby, Chains of Blood. No, we're gonna go to the bottom first. So Swiftness. Dun, dun, dun. I think Swiftness is super good. Like, okay, it flat out gives you another dodge. I'm just gonna put it in A. I'm just going to put it in A. I was gonna put it like B, but then say like it's like B plus A minus. It flat out just gives you another dodge. So I place that very highly. In fact, you can make an argument, in my opinion, that this is probably S because of the utility of the dash. The dash is like one of the most broken things in the whole game. So I think you can make an argument this is just like flat out S. Because not only does it give you an extra one, it has a chance to reduce the cooldown. So like odds are, by the way, it's going to have... 30% is just a high enough chance that it's going to happen pretty much every time within your 4 dashes that you have, right? Obviously, again, people aren't going to typically have that one. Even lower rarities, 18%, I'd take that chance. The blue one, which is what I mainly use, 12%, I've gotten it several times off 12% because, again, having an extra one is damn good. So there's that. I talked about earlier how it synergizes well with Boss Slayer because it just kind of offsets it. You could also synergize it well with Speed if you wanted to do that. My thing is that, and Speed is a little bit different because of the speed increase as opposed to the dash cooldown stuff, but the speed increase itself is very strong. My thing is when you start trying to bunch up blessing stones like that because they have synergy on paper, how is your damage looking? Are you sacrificing damage for utility if they're not damage-based ones? You can make an argument speed, like I said, because of that is damage. You can also make because the speed increase and the cooldown of the dashes, you can also make that same argument for swiftness because of the fact it gives you extra dashes, and dashes lead to you being able to constantly hit the opponent, not being downed, right? That's a huge thing, not wasting time being downed, constantly being able to apply the shadow step, things like that. So that's kind of where this one really is good. Also, aren't there weapons that interact with your dash/shadow step too? Like lower rarity ones. Maybe this works really well in conjunction with that. So that's kind of how things look overall. But again, just try to consider whether or not you're sacrificing too much, right? So we will actually, since we're already here, we're going to cover speed next. So for speed, your speed increases, your dash cooldown will decrease. The dash cooldown is nice. It does obviously help you get to that faster, but the speed increase is very nice because you should, in theory, be doing much more damage with a sizable 12% increase at heroic rarity because of the fact that you're just flat out moving faster. I don't actually know. I need to go back and confirm. Does speed increase attack speed as well? It's movement speed for sure, but does it increase attack speed? I need to confirm. All right, so anyway, for that one, just because I don't know off the top of my head completely with that, I'm going to place it in B. All right, so Chains of Blood. I think Chains of Blood is the best one in the game. And here's the deal with Chains of Blood. Some people are going to get turned away by it because they're going to see, oh, it only works when I take a lot of HP. I don't want to take a lot of HP. Who gives a goddamn if you take a lot of HP? If you want the boss to damn near one-hit you. You want them to. You know why? Because that's going to turn into insane amounts of damage, right? I took dagger technique in my video, and if I wasn't half asleep and if I was in the right state of mind, I would have took the heroic Chains of Blood for the record. But it's all right. I don't really mind too much because I can still use Chains of Blood. I've seen the rare version spike my damage by millions. I'm not kidding. With my ultimate, at least. I'm not kidding. So you get a crazy yield off of this, and that's perfectly fine. The way that the game is designed, like I said, because of the timer, you want as much damage as possible, and this thing can give you the flat-out highest attack increase in the game. The only trade-off is that it's based on the amount of damage that you took, right? So there's that. Also, the good thing about this is that there's no time limit. So that's damn good. That's damn good. So your attack damage increases by 12% of your lost HP ratio, but also increases your damage taken by the same amount. You don't really mind increasing the damage. If you're so concerned about that, you can run, like I said, daily quest completion if you wanted to do that. I would personally not try to offset that with running tenacity or something like that. I wouldn't worry about, or like the Casca Steel. I wouldn't try to do that. I would actually, you know what I would do? I'd just lead into it. I would run Double-Edged Sword. I'd run Chains of Blood. I would run something else like Weakness Detection. Depends on what the need is. Maybe Pulverize, which we haven't talked about. Sharp Perception. Dagger Techniques. You could run something like that. But those two, and then a third in there, and then Daily Quest if you're that worried about it. I've hit with Daily Quest. I'm going to talk about when we get to it. I've hit the point where I start now just flat out taking it off when I used to swear by it because I find myself not needing it as much. But Chains of Blood, for the record, it's so damn good. And the way that the game is designed with Sung Jin-woo specifically is that because it's so offense-based, you don't really invest in his defense. The only defense you're getting is from, like, support skills sometimes, or maybe the extra stats on the substats on the artifacts that you're running, things like that. You're not pushing, ideally anyway, you're not pushing the vitality stat. It's not really worth it. You go full strength or strength perception mix. That's one of those two, ideally full strength, right? That's the way Sung Jin-woo is built in the meta right now. All right, so let's move on from here. We kind of talked about it a little bit, but I think this one's really good. Conqueror of Adversity, I believe is what it's called. So every time that you lose HP, by the way, this is why this one's good with like Chains of Blood or something like that, or Double-Edged Sword, which I keep talking about. because they increase the amount of damage that you take as opposed to chopping off the damage you take. And so every time you take 30% or more of your life, you get an increase of attack, defense, and HP. This stacks up to 3 times, 4% here. I think it's 2.4 or something like that at heroic. Yeah, 2.4. And then obviously nowhere near as good at lower rarities. With some of these, when you start getting like into rare territory, like Chains of Blood is fine. I think Boss Slayer is fine. I would probably not use this one. 1.6. I probably would just not use this one at this rarity. I think you could use Pulverized, Double-Edged, Weakness. Like, I just probably wouldn't use that one personally. Anyway, the increase there is really, really strong in terms of all 3 of those stat increases. So, like I mentioned earlier with offensive and defensive utility with Bloodlust, this is, I think, the only other one that has utility on both, increasing attack, defense, and HP. You could maybe quibble at this one and say that you don't love this one because of the fact that it makes it a little bit less likely that you get hit pretty hard. But, no, I wouldn't even quibble over that because of the fact that it... So the trick with this one is that you ideally aren't getting hit 3 down times for 30% of your life. That's the trick with this one. Ideally, you're not getting hit that many times. Maybe once or twice, but a 3rd time, that may be too much. It may just kill you because you're not running defense increasing stuff. You're flat out using stuff that makes you take more damage in the optimal scenario a lot of times with Chains of Blood. But again, Chains of Blood, while it's the best one in my opinion, that doesn't mean you have to always leave it on. You can take it off. You can substitute it for other things. So maybe you're doing that. Maybe you're not running Double Edge. Like maybe you're running some of these other sets. And in those cases, you have more utility out of that one. I wouldn't use this with a damage cutting one unless you can use that one with Tenacity. Actually, I think I brought that up earlier. You can use it with Tenacity because it'll keep you from dying and you're low on HP. At that point, I would probably run a healing rune or Blessing Stone, maybe Daily Quest or maybe Mana Extraction or HP Extraction, whatever that thing is right here, HP Extraction, which we haven't talked about yet. Maybe you could do something like that. But again, when I start doing too many things like that, maybe Kendiar or Blessing for more HP. When I start doing things like that, I just always shuffle back to, am I sacrificing too much damage, right? Is it worth it going that heavy on optimizing Conqueror of Adversity for those 3 stat increases? I don't think so. And because you're not ideally getting hit that many times, I don't think it's as crazy as some of the other ones. So there's that. Did I place it in A already? Above all that stuff? Huh. That's all right. I'll leave it there. Typically, my tier lists are not left to right. Typically. This one kind of is, I guess. Not really, because I'm not saying, okay, is swiftness better than all this? Like, I'm not, it's not really. The only thing that matters, I guess, is the front one, I guess. So if that's the case, what do I think is the best A tier one? Probably Boss Slayer or Swiftness, one of those two, in my opinion. I don't know if it would be this, but I'll leave it there. All right, so, we've talked a lot about it. Daily Quest. All right, I'll place it in S. Here's the funny thing. I feel like if I place it anywhere below, like A, like if it's like B or below, everyone's going to get pissed off. So I'm not only doing this because of that. I have had a lot of situations where Daily Quest saved my ass. It was the only reason I won some fights. Like, I've had a lot of situations like that. So with that being the case, I have to swear by it in terms of the tier list. But like I said a second ago, as I've gotten better, my builds have gotten better, my characters have gotten stronger, I started hitting a point, ultimately, where I don't need it as much, right? You start to become more daring, right? You take it off, because it's a safety net, is what it is. You take it off, you go more offense. Some of you guys aren't there yet. Some of you guys are there. If you are, let me know your opinions on that. And if you're not there and you still swear by it, no matter what the case is, you're the biggest whale in the world, you still swear by it, that's perfectly fine too. But I found myself kind of taking it off. But it is the best safety net in the entire game because it literally gives you another life. So it's the only one that does what it does. It doesn't matter what rarity it is. It's the only one that does what it does. So I can't say anything bad about it. I think it's totally worth using. And I actually think, like I said several times throughout, whoops, I moved the wrong thing. My bad. Like I said throughout the video several times, I actually think that it's worth plugging into several builds. In fact, I think you could put it into several builds as like the fourth, and it would tie everything together perfectly. So that's the way I think about that one. So I'll leave it in S for now, or just indefinitely. All right, so Sharp Perception. This is the one that increases your critical hit rate. This is another S tier one, because what happens is Here it is. What happens is that critical hit damage is seemingly easier to increase. Critical hit rate is not as easy to increase. And this one works really well with some other stuff like Fatal Strike, things like that. It also, is a nice plug for any offense-based setups that you're running, just because it increases your critical hit rate by 2% for 8 seconds, stacking 5 times at heroic. That's 10%. That's really good. So we will take that. Wait, where's it at? The instincts you honed as a low-ranking hunter gave you the ability to intuit your opponent's weaknesses. Your critical rate increases when your attack. There it is. It's like, where's the condition? When your attack hits, stacking up to 5 times. So here's the deal with this. While it stacks up to that many times, unless multiple attacks within one, which I need to test this. I don't really know this. Like, say, for example, Aditya, thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe just like they did. Let's say, for example, I'm using the Plum Sword. Plum Sword hits, like, I don't know, a bunch of times in one attack. So is it proccing all of those for 8 seconds at once, or is it going one by one each time I press the button? That's a very different thing. I need to test that. I don't know. I'm sure somebody did test it, so let me know, please. Regardless, though, I think just because it's the only rune that's really doing what it does here, Blessing Stone, and crit rate is kind of hard to come by, at least in decent quantities, I think this one goes in S tier easy. And again, it's a nice plug for any offense-based setups that you're running. Because, I don't know, doing more crit damage is the biggest spiker you can do in terms of your overall damage is doing the crit. So, you know. All right, so Demon Slayer. This one is interesting. It increases your overall mana. Yeah, your MP increases by 600. So, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't see a need for this in 99% of builds. The only time I see a need for this is when used with Mana Rampage, which increases your attack but increases your skill consumption. So, like, it offsets that. There are a lot of these in here that just offset one another. And so that's the only time I truly see a need for that. However, I will give this one a little bit more credit with some of the runes in the game that reduce cooldown of themselves or reduce the cooldown of other ones, like things like that. Those ones that are kind of spammy. Then this works pretty well with those, so you don't run out of mana. But typically, I don't experience mana deficiency with Sung Jinu. I sometimes with other hunters do, but not with Sung Jinu. And that's kind of how things have been for me. So I personally don't see a ton of use for that. But like I said, I do see where it can be valuable with certain setups and certain builds overall. Just increasing your flat-out mana. The point is that increasing your flat-out mana isn't the craziest thing. Like, increasing your mana is good, but you typically want to combo that with cooldown reduction or something to let you spam your skills to use the extra mana, right? And so for me, I don't know. I would just use basic attacks, I guess, in that time period, and then I would be fine. Like, it just, I don't know. But I think it works really well, like I said, with Mana Rampage, which, again, increases the attack by a lot. So there's that. Let me go back over here. I think Mana Rampage was soon on the video, so we'll cover that one next. But yeah, because I don't really see much of a need for it. I'm going to place it in C. We're starting to hit some fun ones here. Mana Rampage is, I think, I'll put it A. I think it's probably B+, but anyway, I'll place it in A. Because, like I said, the attack increase is so massive, and it's just a flat-out attack increase. There's no negative on it aside from the consumption of mana. So there's that. And so if you're okay with using some basics, then that's fine. I think the trick with Mana Rampage is that because you're going to have to use some basics because the consumption is going to go high. But again, if you use Demon Slayer, that's fine. But like I said, for the billionth time, is those two runes together, 16% attack, is that worth it versus some other stuff, you know? But the trick, like I said, is that there's no, like, when attacking from behind, like Proficiency does, or when fighting bosses specifically, or enemy monsters, or there's none of that in here. It's just, you get an attack increase. There you go. But the trade-off is you cost more mana, so keep that in mind. There's none of that in here. Even with dagger techniques, where it's like when they're low on HP, you get the bonus. Look, there's none of that. So you are starting the battle with this. So this, in theory, is more consistent, but the trade-off is, like I said, yeah, if you're going to try to offset it 2 spots for 1 attack bonus, I'm not sure I like that. But also, what's going to happen is since you're going to run out of mana, you're not going to be able to use your skills more effectively or as effectively. And if that's the case, you're going to have to mix in, obviously, some more basics and stuff. So is the attack yield from this worth it at that point? That's kind of how I look at this personally. But nonetheless, I think it combos really well, especially with Demon Slayer. But I think if your versus like a shorter stage or something like that, We're not using so much skills that are like, okay, here's where that one's kind of pretty good, actually. I think Mana Rampage, yeah, shorter saves, blah, blah, blah. I think it's probably really good in some stats that will make you get your ultimate fast, like Destroyer, one-hit kill, that type of stuff. I think that one is really good in compositions like that. And you're going to just throw the ultimate, hit them real hard, real fast. At that point, I would combo it with Chains of Blood. And I wouldn't... I mean, maybe you work them down a little bit and you can run Dagger. But I'd probably run Weakness Policy. I keep saying Policy. Detection. Stuff like that together. I think that would work really well. But that's super duper niche. Super niche. But the attack increase is still massive. And it's technically one of the most, if not the most, consistent one, because even like weakness detections where it's like, oh, you get an attack increase, but you got to be type advantaged, which, I mean, you probably should be changing your weapons anyway, but say you don't. Like I said, weakness detection does have that, I don't know, weakness, pun intended. This one is technically like the most consistent attack increase here. It really just is. Even Chains of Blood, the vaunted Chains of Blood, makes you get hit first. You need to get hit first. So it's technically like the most consistent one here. All right, so we are going to bounce back. Once again, if you've made it this far, thank you. I really appreciate it. Apparently, this video is going to be long no matter what I did. We are going to cover Reawakening. So Reawakening is a fun one. So this is kind of one that I was saving because I wanted to talk about it because I knew it was soon. Remember where I talked about in the last couple ones where we talked about the skills with MP and stuff like that? Reawakening is the third. It's a three-piece with Mana Rampage, Reawakening, and Demon Slayer. Those three together is really nice. And so, like I said, while the two slots together, Demon Slayer and Mana Rampage isn't great, you know, maybe damage-wise, Reawakening plugging in as a third, decreasing the skill cooldowns is massive. It's massive. You could really also really cheese this with the ones that already reduce the other skill cooldowns. It may be overkill if you try doing that for the record, but this one is really good in those cases. It's also just flat out really good plugging in pretty much any case. Like, you can use this on any set as like the fourth if you wanted to do that, because it's going to automatically yield more damage. It's also really good with some weapons like Plum Sword, where you want to use them as much as you can. Obviously, use that skill as much as you can. So it automatically is super good. And again, it's another one that's really versatile. It plugs in, like I said, in any set. And it's the only one that does what it does. So I think it's at least A tier, period. I'm trying to be a little stingy with S. So I'm going to place it in A, but I think it's super damn good. I think it's, to be honest, I think it's S quality. I do think it's S quality, but I'm trying to be stingy. I see probably 2 more S's in our list, so I'm trying to be really stingy. The problem is when you do a tier list and you sit there and you cross-reference it, I'm like, okay, is this one better than like, whatever this is called, whatever, I just forgot it. Is it better than Sharp Perception? Maybe. Is it better than Daily Quest? I mean, probably. Is it better than Weakness Detection? I mean, maybe. So should I put it higher? Probably. But I could do the same thing with each and every one of these. Maybe, you know? Demon Slayer, I actually probably should move it to B tier. I'm going to move it to B right now. Okay, that's fine. We'll move it to B. Is this maybe better than some of this? Well, when it's in the three-piece with these three things, it's an A tier one because they all work together, right? Like, so that's the problem with tier lists, is that you could sit here and do that for hours. So I like to personally just throw this stuff on here and just call it. I like to just call it, man, because I can do that for hours. I'm like, okay, well, I got, you know, swiftness up there if I run speed with it, you know, so like that's kind of what you could do. We have some 2 really fun ones in the front and back here. Double-edged sword. We're going to hit that one next. Really, really strong. I've talked about it all video long. When your attack hits, your attack increases by 4% for 10 seconds, but the attack of the target that was also hit increases by 4%, stacking 4 times. Your attack bonus is timed, and the amount that they're increasing is not timed, and they stack it 4 times. Legendary, that's obviously 16%. So if I'm, like I mentioned earlier, with Sharp Perception, if it triggers more than once in one attack press, right, then that's one thing. But if it doesn't, then that's a whole other thing. It makes it worse. But I don't really care as much because the second part of this is not bad because it helps you trigger Chain of Blood faster. So it doesn't really matter to me. You can hit me as hard as you want. Also, it helps you trigger if you wanted to run Conquer of Adversity. It helps you trigger some of that stuff easier, more effectively, and faster because, I don't know, they're going to hit you much harder. So very, very straightforward one. But the attack increase on it is nice. You also get, like I said, the attack increase there versus just a flat damage increase. There are some different scalings that happen with that stuff, so I like to use a combination of both if I can. So we're gonna put this one in. I think it's. I'm trying to be really stingy here. I'll do it. I think it's like A minus or A plus. I mean S minus. I think it's S minus. But if I really think about it, I think weakness detection is probably S minus too. Because like I said, it just depends what you're doing. And probably same with Daily Quest. You know what? I really think the only S is probably Chains of Blood. If I'm being honest. Like Chains of Blood I think is S plus. Maybe I'm overrating it. Somebody's getting annoyed at me. All right, Pulverize. Ooh, Pulverize is the other one that was S tier. Pulverize is easy S in my opinion. It's really damn strong. So the power of your break effect you apply to enemies increases by 30%. Ding, ding, ding. Hello, at least half the fights in the game. Hello. The damage you deal to targets affected by the break effect increases as well. Ding, ding, ding. So damage increase, break effectiveness increase. It's very straightforward. At any rarity, you're going to be using that thing. In fact, I only have it here, and I've gotten great use out of it. So that's one of those ones that you plug in as your fourth, and you just call it a day. Like if somebody wanted to choose Pulverize from that selector, I wouldn't be mad. It's a super easy S in my opinion, because it's the only one that does what it does. Fatal Strike has some interaction with the break gauge. So Fatal Strike is when you crit, their break gauge goes down by I think 3%, and that's a solid effect too. Legendary is 5, then 3 here in the middle, right? Yeah. At the lowest of rarities, I probably wouldn't use it, but you know, so when you crit, you do that. That's not bad. It's not bad at all. It works amazingly with, you know, skills and blessing stones that increase weapons, blah, 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 that increase your crit likelihood, like Sharp Perception if you wanted to run that together. You could do Sharp Perception, Sharp Perception, Pulverize, Fatal Strike, and really, really plow through any sort of opponent that has any break effect or break gauge. You also obviously are going to run double break skills on, obviously. Maybe some of the dark weapons to increase your critical stuff. That's pretty much what you're looking for. And then the fourth in that set could be whatever you want it to be. I would probably plug something consistent. Like at that point, maybe you're able to use dagger techniques at that point. It's probably procced at that point. Something consistent. You could even do the Mana Rampage if you wanted to do that. Something consistent, right? You could also just go full, I'm going to break you, and run Reawakening as the fourth to reduce the cooldown. But like I said, Reawakening can kind of plug into any set that you want. So overall, though, it's really good. I don't swear by it as much. If I'm going to run something, I typically only run Pulverize. So I'll place it in A because it will help you with breaking, and breaking is half the battles. So there's that. I think this is probably the worst one of the game. I just do. Something has to go there. This feels it feels wrong though. It feels really wrong. I feel dirty for doing it. I don't want to put anything down there at this point. At this point, I don't want to do anything. HP Extraction. When you defeat an opponent, you recover 2% of your HP. Combos really well with stuff like Conquer of Adversity to heal you back up so you can take more hits. Combos well in any kind of set, I guess, if you need to heal, I guess, just a little bit. But like I've mentioned earlier with some of the defense ones, at that point, I'd rather just run Daily Quest. I'm not lying to you. With pretty much any defensive set, I'd probably just rather run Daily Quest. We're going to cover a couple more of them really, really soon here. HP Extraction at the base rarity, I'm not using, just flat out not using it. I'm not even coming close to using it. I may come close to using it in Heroic, and if I have it Legendary, I'd probably use it. Maybe not. It doesn't offer any offense, so that's an automatic red flag to me out of all of this stuff. If it doesn't help you at all with damage because of the timer, that's a red flag, just to me. That's the way I perceive the game. You could swear by it, you could disagree, that's fine. And so also, it's also not great unless you're versus stages that make you fight a lot of hordes to consistently proc the recovery. It's just, yeah. It combos okay with Chains of Blood, too. It does. Because you can heal and take more hits. Maybe you take a harder hit later. But for the billionth time, at that point, I'd rather choose Daily Quest and get one shot. I just would. I would. I'm not going to get... I would rather just get one shot than take 80% and heal. I would rather just get one shot. So... I don't know. I'm trying to be nice. I don't know. I'm just gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it. This one increases your max HP. This one is kind of funny. Candy Arrow Blessing, I believe. This one's kind of funny because it's actually kind of good. It's like actually kind of good. I think, is this the best defensive HP defense kind of one in the game? I mean, I guess maybe aside from like Bloodlust, which helps you by reducing their attack. And also the other, well, I guess other than the Conqueror thing here, I think it's A tier. Maybe A minus. A lot of these are A tier. I'm noticing that. So increasing your HP is very valuable because you have stuff like Chains of Blood that can yield a bigger bonus because your HP pool is larger. So that's kind of the way I view this. Unless I'm misinterpreting Chains of Blood in terms of that. Maybe I am. That could be happening. What the? Accidentally pressed something there. Actually, maybe you don't want it with Chains of Blood. Your damage increases by 30% of your lost HP ratio. No, you don't want it with Chains of Blood. Because ideally you're losing more HP. So if you have more HP, then it works counter to it. So that's not great. Okay, well if that's the case, it works damn good with Conqueror of Adversity because it gives you a bigger margin for error with that. But it's another rare I'm going to say it for the 10th time. Just Daily Quest, baby. Daily Quest, baby. Oh, man. Okay, I think it's A quality. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it in B. I'll put it in B. Casca Steel Fangs reduces the damage you take. Here's the deal. Since it's more consistent than Tenacity, I'm putting in B. That's very easy. And this one is a fun one. I still have to test this one. In theory, I think this is A. I think it's A. Maybe it's an S. It could be S. I'm not sure. I need to test it. So I will be doing that soon. I wanted to kind of just end the video. What that one does is it increases your Shadow's offense by a lot. By a lot. The trick is that the Shadows still kind of themselves suck and don't last very long. You could use some of the shadows, like the characters, to help you with that. Let's go over here. Because some of these guys have stuff that helps the effectiveness of your Shadows. Like look at this. Applies a shield to all your Shadows. That's nice, so they don't just get blown the hell up. I don't think Egress does. You do, though. You increase the Shadow's attack, right? Or defense. Yeah, defense of the Shadows. Nice. Helping them not get blown up. But that requires a maxed out elite knight. Like, I'm not. I don't know if it requires exactly that, but I'm not pushing these Shadows that far, personally. I think you might have something too, right? Yeah, attacking. There it is. The attack increase for Shadows. Ooh, baby. That with him is kind of disgusting. Again, all offense, baby. The attack with him is kind of crazy. You know what I would do? I would run Tusk with tank. No, Iron. Tusk and Iron. Because shield is valuable. Equal to 10% of the user's max HP. Okay. I mean, if you wanted to run the HP increasing Blessing Stone at that point, go for it. Yeah, so that's kind of probably what I would do. But I think that one's really, really strong, despite the fact that the base Shadows are kind of weak. So overall, that is our tier list. How many of you guys are pissed off? I know that some of you... damn it, pushed it to damn near an hour. God damn it. I know some of you guys are like, I don't agree with that. And also, there's going to be people that shot to the end of the video and completely missed the entire context of everything that I said, and they're going to disagree with me. It's fine. It's fine. You don't know why I said what I said, but it's fine. All right. All right. Share this tier list with your friends. Share the video with your friends. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I will see you all next time. Take it easy.